Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Kefa'a is the perfect example of this. Fear and trembling come from the desire to walk a narrow path. We are learning to walk while navigating a thin place. At times we might stumble, sometimes we might even fall, but we keep going. We continue to work it out. Kefa'a fished to provide for his family. We can all relate to searching for the provisions we need. Maybe we're looking for a new job, a new home, or simply wondering where our next meal will come from. Kefa''s net kept coming up empty. But when he submitted to Yahushua's instructions, everything changed. His empty nets became full. Changed results make us hungry to learn more about the Father. We long to walk in His power, to be transformed. We thirst for His water because we know the ministry He has placed in our lives needs His nourishment to grow. It is a beautiful and wonderful thing to be given an assignment, to know our place in His kingdom. And when we do, all the days our nets came up empty suddenly make sense. We realize that the miraculous healing and provision in our lives were never the result of our own efforts, but the work of Yahuwah Himself. It is the Spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words I speak unto you, they are ruach, and they are life. But there are some of you that believe not. For Yahushua knew from the beginning who they were that believeth not, and who should betray him. And he said, Therefore said I unto you, that so man can come unto me, except it were given unto him of my Father. Yahushua asked, But who do you say I am? Kefa'a answered, You are the Mashiach, the son of the living Elohim. Yahushua replied, Barach are you, Shimon bar Yonah. For this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in Shemaim. And I tell you that you are Kefa'a, and on this rock I will build my Kehillah, and the gates of Sheol will not overcome it. Couldn't you, men, keep watch with me for 1 hour? He asked Kefa'a. Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The Ruach is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away a second time and prayed, My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them, and went away once more and prayed a third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them, Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered unto the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal for them. The one I kiss is the man, arrest him. Going at once at Yahushua, Yehuda said, Greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Yahushua replied, Do what you came for, friend. Then the men stepped forward, seized Yahushua, and arrested him. With that, one of Yahushua's companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Put your sword back in its place, Yahushua said to him, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how, then, would the scriptures be fulfilled that it say it must happen in this way. In that hour Yahusha said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him. Shimon Kefa'a and another Talmid followed Yahusha as he was taken away. The second Talmid was known to the Kohen Hagadol, so he was allowed into the courtyard, while Kefa'a remained outside, waiting by the gate. After a moment, the other Talmid spoke with the woman on duty, and she allowed Kefa'a to enter. As Kefa'a stepped inside, the woman at the gate looked at him closely and asked, "Aren't you one of that man's Talmudim?" Kefa'a shook his head. "No, I am not," he replied. Nearby, a group of slaves and guards had gathered around a fire, warming themselves against the cold night air. Kefa'a moved toward them, standing close to the flames, trying to blend in. Meanwhile, inside, the Kohen Hagadol questioned Yahusha about his Talmid and his teachings. Yahusha answered calmly, "I have spoken openly to everyone. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple where all the Yahudim gather. I have said nothing in secret, so why are you questioning me? Ask those who have heard me. They know what I have said." At this, one of the guards struck Yahusha across the face. "Is this how you speak to the Kohen Hagadol?" he demanded. Yahusha met his gaze and replied, "If I said something wrong, tell me what it was. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me?" After this, Anan sent Yahusha, still bound, to Kefa'a, the Kohen Hagadol. Outside, Kefa'a remained by the fire when someone else turned to him and asked, "Aren't you also one of his Talmudim?" Again, Kefa'a denied it. "No, I am not." Then a man, a relative of the one whose ear Kefa'a had cut off in the grove, narrowed his eyes at him. "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" he challenged. Kefa'a's heart pounded. For the third time he denied it. And in that instant, the sharp cry of a rooster pierced the night. Shalom Aleichem. Just as the Father has sent me, I myself am also sending you. Having said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Ruach HaKodesh. If you forgive someone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you hold them, they are held." Kefa'a spoke up. "I'm going fishing," he announced. The others exchanged glances and nodded. "We'll come with you," they said. They climbed into the boat and pushed off into the water. The night stretched on, but no matter how many times they cast their nets, they caught nothing. As dawn began to break, a figure stood on the shore, watching them. They didn't realize it was Yahusha. He called out, "You haven't caught any fish, have you?" "No," they answered, weary and disappointed. "Throw your net to the right side of the boat," he instructed, "and you will find some." With nothing to lose, they did as he said. Suddenly, the net became so heavy with fish, they couldn't haul it in. The Talmid Yahusha loved turned to Kefa'a, his eyes widening with recognition. "It's Adonai!" he exclaimed. Without hesitation, Kefa'a grabbed his coat. He had stripped down for work, threw it on, and plunged into the lake, swimming toward the shore. The others stayed in the boat, struggling to drag the net full of fish behind them. They weren't far from land, only about 100 yards. When they reached the shore, they saw a fire burning, with fish already roasting on the coals and bread beside it. "Bring some of the fish you have just caught," Yahusha said. Kefa'a hurried to the net and pulled it ashore. It was overflowing, 153 fish in total, yet miraculously, the net had not torn. "Come and have breakfast," Yahusha invited them. No one dared ask, "Who are you?" They knew it was Adonai. Yahusha took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time he had appeared to them since rising from the dead. After breakfast, Yahusha turned to Shimon Kefa. "Shimon bar Yochanan, do you love me more than these?" Kefa looked at him and nodded. "Yes, Adonai, you know I'm your friend." "Feed my lambs," Yahusha said. Second time, Yahusha asked, "Shimon bar Yochanan, do you love me?" Again, Kefa answered, "Yes, Adonai, you know I'm your friend." "Shepherd my sheep," Yahusha said. Then, for a third time, Yahusha asked, "Shimon bar Yochanan, are you my friend?" Kefa's heart sank. The third time, just as he had denied Yahusha 3 times, he felt the weight of it. But he answered honestly, "Adonai, you know everything. You know I'm your friend." "Feed my sheep," Yahusha said. Then he looked at Kefa intently and continued, "When you were younger, you dressed yourself and went wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which Kefa would glorify Yahweh. Then he said simply, "Follow me." Kefa turned and saw the Talmud, whom Yahusha especially loved, walking behind them. Curious, Kefa asked, "Adonai, what about him?" Yahusha responded, "If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me."